Good afternoon. You're listening to episode 172 of PHP Ugly, the only podcast banned in 34 countries. I'm your host, Eric Van Johnson. With me, as always, my partners in crime, Thomas Rideout.
Hello.
And John Congdon.
Hello, hello. What 34 countries were there? Can you rattle them off real quick?
Yeah, pretty much all of them that starts with A and B, and a couple of C's. Just so you know.
Just alphabetical. They're slowly banning us.
Yeah, we're just working our way through the alphabet. How's everybody doing? We got all three of us together. It's been a few weeks.
Oh, good.
Did you listen to last week's show, Thomas? Did you cry? Did you laugh? No?
Nope.
Where you been, man? You've been MIA. I mean, you weren't only on the show, but you've kind of been silent. Haven't heard
I've
a lot
been busy.
about you. I know you got a new puppy.
Yeah, so I skipped the whole raising babies thing by just marrying into a completed family already, and swore to myself since I was, I think, 12 years old that I would never change a diaper or pick up poop or anything like that. And now we have a puppy, and
Now you have a puppy.
completely lost. I am picking up poop constantly.
That is my morning routine every morning. My dog is so neurotic. He's been on the podcast before. He's the office manager, but he is so neurotic. Come rain or shine, it doesn't matter. That dog has to go for a walk every morning. It drives. It's to the point where, if I'm having if I'm busy or if I'm having busy days or bad days, he doesn't care. He's going to go for a walk, he's going to poop, and he's going to make sure I pick it up. That's my world.
I wonder how you make sure you pick it up.
Oh, he just
bites you
stares
if
at
you
me.
don't.
Yeah, just stares at me.
That's
Kishu,
fun.
welcome.
I had my wife told me a story with the little one a couple days ago. Nolan is helping clean out the cat litter box, and then asks her about having a puppy. It's like, I want to have a puppy one day. And then turns to her and says, "Mommy, can you grow a puppy in your tummy?"
What has science wrought?
Oh, that's so cute. He's got some basic understandings of where things come from. That's nice.
Well, I mean,
But then
it's still tummy.
So?
But he's like, when she said, "No, I only grow babies in my tummy. Mommy dogs grow baby puppies." He's like, "Oh, how do we get one of those?" Like, disappointed that we don't have a mommy puppy to have a
Mommy puppies.
kids.
We have a developer, or we have a developer who brings his little corgi into the office, and they were all there on Wednesday. And this dog it's been there enough times now where it's comfortable. It understands that it's allowed to be there. It comes into my office and jumps up on the couch and lays down. And
I thought we said no dogs in the office.
no, you've said that like a million times. Nobody listens to you. You've got to show up before you can establish rules for the office. You've got to be at the office. Okay, that's how it goes. But
The man moves out of state. Rules change.
This is true. That might be happening. So we're in conference season. All of a sudden, everybody's announcing their conferences. Tickets are going on sale. PHP Tech is now available. Laravel just announced their conference and where it's going to be. Tickets aren't available yet, but it's going to be in Atlanta. It's going to be at the aquarium, which sounds super cool.
That sounds interesting.
Oh no! Hey man,
No,
I'm
way
telling
to
you,
calm it down.
we went to a.
I saw your mind turning. I'm gonna go through so many adjectives here. I'll stop at interesting.
Yeah, I cut myself off for sure.
My wife has been in the healthcare field for years, and she's worked for some high-end doctors, and they had this big thing at the SeaWorld here in San Diego, and it was probably the coolest kind of gathering I had ever been to. It was in one of the aquariums, so like the stuff is going on, and then you kind of look over, and then it's like you're in an aquarium. Like it's cool. It's a cool atmosphere. Very relaxing.
There's a shark correcting your React talk. Yeah, I understand the mistake you've made, but that's ES6.
So I'm particularly interested in tech this year. The wife, again, and I have been very seriously considering moving to Tennessee, Nashville particularly, which is where tech is this year. And I was just telling John, I'm like, we might actually go out there the week before tech and do a little house shopping. We got our first call from a realtor today, as a matter of fact.
Oh, really?
I do, and find a house on Zillow and blindly move out without ever seeing it.
What's that?
Just find something on Zillow.
That's what normal people do.
That's what we did. Yeah, we did. That's actually
no. He's saying you find it, you buy it, and then move. You don't even go look at it.
You never go look at it. Oh, I got you. No. Yeah, no. We found a house. It's funny. It's like that industry. They're like vultures, man. They can't if you show the slightest hint of interest, boom, they're calling you like crazy. I just sent a message saying, I'm interested in this location. Any idea on what internet companies are available to it and what internet speeds it has? Because it's a little rural. I mean, it's not super rural, but it's a little rural. It's like right there on the edge. And I submit that, and like 3 minutes later, they're calling me on the phone. Hi, this is your agent. Blah blah blah. Yeah, I just want to let you know. Yeah, there's high-speed internet there. These are the companies that these are the options you have, and next thing you know, it's like a 15-20 minute call with them.
I wonder if they're using PhoneBurner. They have a lot of realtors using their service.
Might be.
And this is going to be interesting though. May in the middle, of Nashville, is a little bit uncomfortable.
Why is that? Just
it gets humid and buggy. Although that is a good time to see fireflies.
I do miss fireflies. We don't have fireflies here in San Diego, at least not where we're at.
I had a weird experience where I thought I saw one. I was out in my yard the other day, and I saw something. I'm like, that was weird. There's no fireflies here in San Diego. And then I saw another one. It's like, okay, super weird. My neighbor was doing a wood fire in his fireplace, and he had little
embers.
Embers flying out.
I was gonna say, and then you woke up in the hospital and said, "Damn it, not again." Don't follow the fireflies, John.
All right, you got me there. That is something to be concerned about.
Well, I've told you guys that tech is probably my my goal conference for next year.
Cool.
Submit to be a speaker.
Yeah, I'm getting pressured for that too, Thomas. John's already submitted, so he's just kind of kicking back and just grinning a bit.
and convincing other people to submit. I don't know why. That lowers my likelihood of being selected, so that's kind of silly.
So that's why.
I
don't want to do it. I just feel pressured to do it.
I want to do it. I honestly want to do it. I mean, I'm always so at all of presenters at conferences, and I feel like I could do it. I'm just not good at it.
No, you're really good at it. It's more about coming up with a topic. It'd be fun is submitting a joint one and do some sort of comedy thing.
That would be funny.
That's basically
who's on first sort of thing.
That was how SDPHP did it for a while. Is the two of you would do a whole who's on first routine.
No, we did.
Well, that's just the intro. During our intro is.
You did a couple joint presentations.
No.
Oh yeah, when I first started doing it.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't.
That's true too, which is another reason why I can't submit.
I do. I
prove my point, good sir.
With the topic, I got to come up with something. I don't know what. I'm so terrible at that. I'm just terrible at teaching. I'm a bad teacher.
I've got a developer topic that friend of the show, Tim Lytle, asked me to talk about.
Tim Lytle. We love Tim.
He didn't
He gets
ask me
more
to talk about it.
He gets more airtime in our podcast than Buttery Crumpets now.
Possibly. So, I think I've talked about it before. I don't know how much detail we've gone into, but one of our clients is PhoneBurner.com. And it's an interesting relationship that we have because they brought me on as a contractor before we had DiegoDev. And it grew into DiegoDev kept growing, and then we switched. Instead of me being just a contractor, they are a client of DiegoDev, but they also have a development team of their own. And I do the work on their contract for DiegoDev. So that's why I always reference other developers. Anyway, we're in a sprint planning meeting. So they're trying something new for 2020, doing 6-week sprints. And everyone got together today in a long 2.5, 3-hour conversation to, one, explain what the plan is for 2020, and then to start estimating some of the tasks for this first 6-week sprint. And the person running the meeting called us all resources.
Yeah. See? That's what you are, bitch. You're
I
a
know.
resource.
So, if anyone that
I love the two sides of the spectrum here, where being called a resource is somewhat demeaning, versus being called a resource is an incredible business opportunity.
So that if you know Cal Evans in the industry, he tweets out this kind of stuff all the time. Like if your managers call you resources, you should be able to call them overhead.
That's right. I agree with that too. I totally agree with that. That is. I have no issue with that.
So I'm trying to explain this whole topic to my wife, and I'm like, why did we have to be called resources? Why isn't it, we're going to do this as developers? We're going to apply for developers to this sprint versus for resources. And she has a different take on the word resource because in her field, a resource is somebody you reach out to. I'm going to refer you to somebody else, another therapist that might be able to handle that particular need.
Right.
So she has resources that she can reach out to or to refer people to.
Well, but we have the same thing, right? I mean, you have developers. You also have system ops people. You also have project managers. I mean, not everybody's a developer.
People love being called resources, though. The further they can abstract themselves away from being called humans, they're happy.
Yeah, but you also have laptops and printers and other resources that people use. So it's more like you're being used versus being a team member or somebody that has expertise.
I really think you read a little too much into that. You're one of those very sensitive millennials. It's like I don't identify as a resource.
Yes,
I'm a developer.
How dare us software developers worry too much about language definitions?
I know, and I mean, John has done a lot I'm, as we know on this show, the most guilty of that because I use it all the time. And to me, I mean, I'm not being derogatory. I'm not cheapening anybody's position. I'm just generalizing what we're throwing at a client.
But you also come from that corporate background where people are resources.
Big blue.
And I mean, John's made some valid points. I can see how some people, might take exception to it. I mean, I don't think it's a derogatory way of referring to somebody, but I do see the way it kind of objectifies a person from saying.
Sure, and I'm not like taking too much offense at it, but I do also know myself really well. And if someone referred to me as a resource, I would correct them and say my name is Tom.
All right, Tom the resource. There we have it.
Yeah, that's close enough to my last name.
There you go. Yeah. So just throw developers into it, not resources. You're good to go.
Oh boy, I've been trying.
Man, those meetings can go so long.
I have one of the PTSD issues I have from my time in the enterprise was meetings. I am so much not a fan of meetings, and even today, it's like I don't think even our clients understand. It's like when you have your entire development team, all your resources, when you have all your developers on a meeting, and that meeting's an hour long, and you have like 4 developers or 5 developers, that's 5 hours of work that's not being done now. And that's 5 hours you're paying for those developers. And I hate meetings. I do hate meetings because so many times they're so, you feel like they're productive, and then you realize a couple days later everything's changed, and that meeting you just had is absolutely worthless. I mean, I hate meetings.
Photos of whiteboards get reviewed about as frequently as photos of food.
Or photos in general that just get taken and put up in the cloud.
Just file that away under this was a 4-hour meeting and we got 1 photo out of it.
Hey Tom, can you scoot your camera down a little bit, please?
Can I? I can't even see myself.
Oh, you're just kind of there. You go. That's good. That's good. Perfect. Appreciate that. I'm sure our viewers appreciate it too. Let's see your pretty face.
So you said you had a lot of questions for me.
No, I just wondering what happened to you, man. It's not very often you go radio silent on me.
Just a lot of teenager stuff. It's
not work.
No. Work's been busy. We're hauling stuff out right now, but just chaos.
I can appreciate
chaos and puppies.
And puppies.
Yeah, he has to go outside at 2:00 every night. So like I have to do that, and it's otherwise he poops on the floor.
They're kind of simple like that, yeah.
Yeah, and we're training him now. We're doing all sorts of this puppy training stuff. Uh-huh. So, like, every article of clothing I own has treats inside the pockets. And they're, like, just all over the house, like, on my desk and just everywhere.
Yeah. I've been popping them every once in a while just to have something.
Just to feel alive. And it's just weird because, like, he's gotten so used to the whole treat for going to the bathroom system that when I take him outside to go to the bathroom, he stares at me while pooping. And then when he's done, runs at me full speed with a big smile waiting for his treat. And it's bad when all of a sudden you're in the house and he runs up to you with a big smile on his face waiting for a treat.
My kids did the same thing. It does calm down. Like after a little while, they're like, I don't need those M&Ms anymore. I got this.
Speaking of little ones, I know you guys have been watching The Mandalorian.
No.
Oh yeah, I've been watching it.
Baby Yoda.
Do I need to watch it?
Just the cutest thing ever.
Are you a Star Wars fan?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Then watch it. Yeah, if you're a Star Wars fan, you'll like it. Yeah.
Well, or Firefly, because it's basically a reboot of Firefly.
You know, you're right. It is, isn't it?
It's a spaghetti western, precious cargo, chased across the universe by the Empire, hunted down, landing on planets and saving the locals and taking off.
Like, so should I watch Firefly first, or should I watch Mandalorian first?
Well, you should watch Firefly first because it's one season, and Mandalorian season isn't over yet. It's got another 2 episodes. Also, if you haven't seen Firefly, like, shame on you.
Yeah, Firefly is one of those rites of passage for every geek.
Yeah, it's one of the greatest shows ever made.
It's actually really good. You need to watch
it. Is it on Netflix or?
That's a good question.
I have it on Netflix. Yeah, it's on one of those because I binge watched it, so it's on one of those. I don't know which one it is. Firefly, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon. Somebody has it.
It is on Hulu.
There you go. Firefly is it's a quick watch. It's like I said, it's one of these it's one of these shows where, due to the fans' outcry, they actually created a movie to wrap up the show because the fans were so mad that they canceled it, and they wanted some sort of conclusion, that they ended up making a movie to wrap up the series.
I always love that when people demand the conclusion. It's like, you realize it's just made up anyway.
No,
you can make up your own conclusion.
No, the conclusion was brilliantly executed, though. Is that the movie Serenity is also totally amazing.
Well, that's like to John's point, though. I watched this, like, all of a sudden this outcry over the Wonder Woman trailer about the fact that she's swinging from lightning bolt to lightning bolt. They're like, that's not physically possible. I'm like, you understand, it's Wonder Woman. Like, she's blocking bullets. She's, jumping, 3 miles at a time.
Flying in an invisible car.
Right. None of that's possible. So the fact that she's lassoing lightning bolts and jumping from lightning bolt to bolt, I think is pretty badass. Let it go.
It's pretty badass, but I'm kind of burned out on the 80s right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I know that's a big part of this movie. I don't know how much they kind of goof on it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's the whole thing takes place in 1984, and it's like the Stranger Things, the latest Stranger Things season was like late 80s, I think 87, and a lot of that stuff. It's good, but I'm just getting tired of the throwback. However,
and they got Captain Kirk's back. How's he get brought back to life?
Wait, he died?
Yeah, in the original Wonder Woman.
Age. Or something.
In the original Wonder Woman, he died. The Wonder Woman show, he flies off in the plane, it blows up.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Unless he does the whole Captain America thing and gets frozen somewhere. I don't know.
Kirk? You said Captain Kirk. I was thinking Star Bananas. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's the same actor who played the new Kirk. What's his name?
Chris Pines.
Chris Pines.
Yeah. But hey, since we're on pop culture, Ghostbusters trailer.
Okay, I'm excited.
I'm so excited.
Yes.
I was a little weirded out by the setting for the movie until I saw a little explainer thing that was like, hey, they drop a hint about something here and you missed it because it was just so small. But the place that they're at is a ranch that was owned by the guy who designed the building from the first Ghostbusters.
Was it? Oh, I thought it was the guy who designed
Egon.
Egon. Yeah, I thought it was Egon.
Yeah. So what got derived from that information was that after all the ghosts were vanquished in 2, he went seeking out the cult of Gozer and the origin of all these supernatural powers that were in the building from the first one. And he found himself on an abandoned mine that was owned by the architect. And that's where he was creating the cult of Gozer. And it sets up so many cool things. Like the problem I had with the reboot was out of nowhere, they're just like, hey, we've got all these new toys where you can punch a ghost. And like they had no time to research or understand what the hell it was they were doing. They just said, here's a box of new toys, and they all started doing it, and it was just lame. And in this case, you get all of the stuff that Egon was making for years or decades after the end of Ghostbusters, and it's just dusty and barely works, and it's like the classic Egon style of like, hey, this thing is a giant bomb, so don't use it, but also I'm going to need you to use it. And I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I was, when I saw the first hint, and it was just the Echo One car in a barn.
Right.
I was like, oh, what the hell is going on here? But now that I've seen the trailer, I'm like, all right, that's kind of cool. I'm looking forward to it.
And Paul Rudd,
who's in everything. He's in
But
every movie
he's
now.
a nerd. Paul Rudd is a nerd. You know he wouldn't sign on to a bad script. And like when he holds up the ghost trap and he's like, "Oh, it's a cool replica," I was like, "Oh, that's so great!" Like he's an old Ghostbusters fanboy and he's into the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm stoked for it.
Have you seen his new show on Netflix, that Living with Yourself?
I
No.
started it. I haven't finished it yet. Interesting. Interesting way they filmed that.
Yeah, we're like 4 episodes in. It
Yeah.
is interesting.
Yeah.
See,
I need to
neither
jump
of
back
you
on
has
that.
said it's good. You both said it's interesting.
I've kept watching it, so, and it's a show I watch with my wife, so we don't watch much TV together. So when we sit down to watch, that's our go-to right now.
Yeah.
Is catching up on that.
It takes a little getting used to, and if you don't like those shows that do a lot of time jumping, like my wife Beck, she can't stand time jumping sort of movies. This does a lot of that, where you're back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah, they're not doing time jumping. They're showing you the future and the past of what's happened.
Right,
but
right.
It doesn't keep that up.
You never.
Bad.
Oh, he doesn't. Yeah.
No.
But it's it's cool because they basically film the same show twice, where it's like from different perspectives. It's like you end up watching the same sequence of events 2 times. You just watch it from different perspectives.
I really think there's only the first couple of episodes.
Okay, I need to jump back on board with it.
Yeah, but the premise is he's in a depressed state, goes to the spa because his friend did it, and his friend's life completely changed. And it's a little ridiculous that you got to spend $50,000 and he's willing to plop down that much cash. But anyway, you go to the spa, and what it basically boils down to is they clone him into a better version of himself,
right?
And then they kill off the original you.
But they don't tell you that. They don't explain that to you when they do it. But yeah, that's the idea.
Spoiler alert. Oh, you're supposed to say that first, right?
Yeah,
there's a lot
exactly.
I have a lot of issues with that, like the way that we understand consciousness. Like I'd like it if they got super deep into that.
Well, this actually gets into that a little bit. It's pretty good.
It's a fun show. Anyway, I didn't mean to derail. You guys said Paul Rudd, which made me think of that.
Well, no,
it's movies.
Pop culture minute.
Oh yeah, it's fun.
Pop culture.
Speaking of things to be excited about, PHP 7.4 is out.
Yes, so we've had a request to cover features.
Anybody using it yet? That's the big question.
We are not yet.
No.
But I am on Laravel 6.7.
Is that the one that came out today?
It actually came out yesterday, and Laravel News just didn't cover it until today.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah.
Go
ahead.
I was gonna say, I know the arrow functions is one of them, and was it you, Eric, that posted something in our Slack channel about making it easier to understand? Oh no, it was Daryl, I think, posted an article where it was easier for him to understand what arrow functions were and some of the idiosyncrasies behind them.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, arrow functions are interesting because the idiosyncrasy is the feature. For me, inside of an arrow function, anything that's defined in there has its scope limited entirely to that function. And the way that it handles scoping things inside and outside are very different than the rest of how PHP handles scope. So it's not something that you want to jump into and just start using without thinking. It's definitely something that you're going to want to do research on first. And unfortunately, I don't have like a good explanation of the details of it right in front of me. I'd have to pull up the article I read originally, but yeah, arrow functions are cool and I'm going to use them. And definitely since I'm going to be moving into more React stuff, I'm going to be using them more just because they function very similarly to each other.
I was gonna say it's the same pattern too. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of the same pattern in ES6 JavaScript. You can actually shorten arrow functions even further with just using an equals greater than. There's dumb stuff in the ES6 that I don't understand, but yeah, it's
John, didn't you
cool.
say with the release of 7.4, one of the versions, like one of the 7 versions, come end of life, right?
7.1, yeah.
7.1 is end of life.
Or 7.0, I can't remember which.
Man. All right, now I have to see end of life.
Yeah, I'm going to checking it now.
Can't keep up with it.
7.1, end of life.
Man.
And 7.2 is security release only.
And we've got type properties now.
Can't keep up with this. Can't keep up with it at all. Yeah, type properties.
I think type properties are going to be great.
You know, I'm. Why do you think they're going to be so great? I don't get it. We had this conversation, didn't we?
Yeah, because every time I pull in a library that uses type properties for it, then the IDE immediately picks it up and says, "Hey, here's exactly what you can put here." And the moment I type a bad character, or the moment I reference a bad object, it says, no. And I catch it way before I even have to start debugging something.
Well, I mean, we had them via doc blocks, but now you get rid of 3 lines for every single variable in your class.
Yeah.
Which will be nice.
And is this also the one I wasn't a fan of, where you could have multiple return types or something?
No.
No. Okay. Where was that at? Didn't
I believe
we have
that is
defined somewhere?
I believe that is approved for 8.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that one.
You were a fan of the null coalescing assignment operator.
I am a big fan of that one. Yeah.
I am a fan of that one as well.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, we don't have it on any servers yet. We probably need to do that fairly soon. Yeah, no coalescing.
I think the big one that Thomas was super excited about was the numeric literal separator.
That's what we talked about, yeah.
You can use an underscore instead of bunching all your numbers together.
You came around to that one, didn't you, Thomas?
I did. I did eventually come around.
Yeah. What's this one? I didn't see this one. Array spread operator. That's kind of cool.
The unpacking.
It just says array spread operator.
So we've already had the spread operator, but it looks like they are doing more with it now. Yeah, it's basically array packing is what I think you're saying.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Yeah,
instead of
looking at the examples, that's what it is.
Instead of having to splice and dice your arrays.
Yeah, and I mean that's one of those things. That's one of those things that I'm going to use almost day one when I start having drop downs. Because if you ever have to pull data from multiple sources in drop downs and then put them in a specified order, then it's such a pain in the ass right now. Collections have helped with that, but no, I like the unpacking. FFI, which is it just sort of gets one line in the documentation here, but FFI means that you can call non-native functions defined in C libraries, basically DLLs. And God knows what's going to happen there.
Well, I know you had some concerns. Maybe people will stop creating so many PHP extensions and things like that because they'll say, "Hey, there's already a C library out there that does it." I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. I get that, but this is something that's in just about every other language has some variation of this.
Yeah.
So I think it was just one of these things that, developers coming from other languages are like, hey, I already know this C library is out there. Why can't I just call it? I don't see myself particularly using it just because I'm not of that mindset. But I don't
Yeah,
know.
it says you need to have a C knowledge in order for it to impact you.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
maybe a good tutorial away from actually appreciating it more. I never really had a huge opinion about it either way. I know Taylor, when we talked to him, was big on the whole preloading thing. I've seen a lot about the preloading stuff. So that's finally a thing. But that'll be interesting to see when frameworks start requiring 7.4 just so that they can take advantage of preloading.
well, so the way preloading works is that it's not mandatory. If the preload file doesn't exist, or if the preload cache doesn't exist, it just runs like a normal program.
Oh, okay.
Um, the the way that the whole preload system works is actually going to be part of Composer, where you're going to generate your preloads. The same way that when PHP initially introduced auto discovery, it worked, but you had to like write your auto discovery script, and now Composer does that for you. So the big thing with preloading right now is that the Composer community is trying to figure out the proper way to handle a preloading tag on Composer install. So that's something that we'll see coming, next couple months or something like that. I wouldn't worry about preloading until then. But I mean, like you said, 7.1 is out of date now. 7.2 is just security fixes. I mean, frameworks are going to require 7.4 in 2 years anyways, no matter what.
I don't know what's going on. I just noticed it for whatever reason, but I am like losing power quickly to my laptop. I'm down to 63% and I'm plugged in. I don't know what's going on.
And you've had a couple of those audio blips recently.
Oh, I haven't heard it.
Yeah.
I need to plug in my another power adapter to this. I don't know.
Are you
works.
using the new one?
Well, I'm using the external GPU.
Right, but are you using the new power? Oh, you're using that to power your laptop.
Yeah, it's never been a problem. I've been using it. So go ahead, lay it on me, Thomas. Yes, I got the new 16-inch MacBook. Whatever. I didn't get the tower though, so screw you guys. You guys don't know me.
I've heard the 16-inch MacBook is actually all right.
Hey, I got an escape key again, and I tell you what, love this keyboard. I was never super happy with the other one, but because I usually use a dock, it didn't really bother me. Just occasionally when I had to actually use the laptop, but going back to this laptop and this keyboard, I really remember it's like, oh man, I actually enjoy typing on my laptop again. This is awesome. And then I have an escape key, and I have a shitload of RAM, and I have a shitload of disk space there. I was like, I don't even have to. I had a terabyte of disk space on my old laptop, which I'm like, I'll never run out of disk space with a terabyte. And damn if I wasn't like struggling with disk space. I mean, it wasn't terrible. I had like 100 gigs, but you put together a couple, like these streams that we do, this Restream app actually stores it locally. So every time we stream, it's like a 2 gig file that I have to go in and download. Now I don't sweat it so much. I'll go in there eventually and download.
I wonder if that's what's messing with your audio.
Maybe. But yeah, but for whatever reason, I just noticed that I'm dropping power like crazy now. I don't know what it is. So these new laptops do have the bigger battery, and it had the bigger charger to go with it. But I don't know, man. Technology is confusing. It's confusing. Speaking of confusing, and speaking of John.
What'd I do this time?
If you listen to last week's episode, the audio version, it's a little bit of a rough edit, in the sense that there is no editing. Our good friend John actually took another crack at editing a podcast, and he almost got done with it. He got to like 70%. And
after crashing multiple times, I threw my hands up in the air, wanted to strangle somebody.
Thomas knows I have this OCD thing. Like I don't want to record another podcast if the previous one isn't released yet.
Oh no, I agree with you on that. That's fine.
So when John gave me that message, I'm like, damn it, I'm just gonna strip it from YouTube and publish it. So I totally didn't listen to it. There's no editing on it, with the exception I cut off. If you watch the podcast, we'll sit here and talk for 15, 20 minutes after the recording, and we'll usually stream that. I went ahead and cut that off, but there's no like little gag thing before the intro. It just jumps right into the show.
So what day did that come out on?
Like a couple hours ago.
Oh, so
Yeah, it was like
it's not the easiest job to get it out on the weekend.
6 or 8 hours ago.
Sometimes it does take a while to get it out, but it still does get out.
Listen,
Thomas, thank you for all you do.
He's a complete noob.
I
Come
assure
on,
you,
man.
I still am too.
I got my editing down pretty quick now. The longest.
I was trying so hard to make
part
myself not sound so bad, and I'm like saving constantly. And I found like a bug within Audacity where I originally saved the project to Dropbox, but then I realized every time I do anything, it's uploading all those files. So I'm like, oh, I'm just going to do a save as and save it locally. But just before I did that, I deleted the files from Dropbox. Completely threw Audacity off. Like, I don't know what to do.
It hates that, yeah.
I'm like, but it's still open. You can still save it. Nope. Can't do it.
Do you get...
I was able to...
I totally get your... That's the one thing, like, when I edit it, I'm horrible at it because, first thing, I can't stand the way I speak. I can't stand the way I breathe. Now I understand why my wife hates it when I breathe. The ums, the ands, the blah, blah. Oh, man, I'm like, how does anybody take me seriously? I can't. I just can't.
You are so close to a revelation right now. I don't want to interrupt you.
Why am I friends with you?
Friends.
We're the worst.
You're so close. You're so close. Figure it out.
Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, if you ever want to get better at speaking, record yourself speaking and then edit that recording, and you really start to become more aware of what you're saying. I mean, I'm still terrible at it, but I feel like all three of us are so much better than when we started. If you were to go back and listen to some of our first shows, it's just really
don't
bad.
do that.
No, yeah,
Too many people have done that. Have messaged us that they're listening to the whole backlog, and the first question is why.
I mean, it gets out. I mean, it's not like what we're talking about is, doesn't have an expiration date. It's like the stuff we talked about the first 2 years is meaningless now.
Yeah.
Have we been doing it that long?
I mean, the stuff we talked about a month ago is pretty meaningless too.
Stuff we talked about last week.
Last week doesn't carry a lot of weight either, to be honest with you. John, we're on episode 171. If we recorded
172.
every week, 172. If we had recorded every week, figure 52 shows a year, right? That would be one show a week. I mean, just
Very
do the
good.
math there, right?
So carry the 6 minus 4 divided by 3. Yeah, it's like a year and a half.
Don't forget about the C variable there, And then keeping in mind we don't record every week. We take breaks and miss weeks here and there, and it's been quite a few years. I think we're in year 5 now, right? 4 or 5.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's cool though. I enjoy it. I still look forward to it for the most part.
All right, I have an interesting story,
Lay it on us.
and it is somewhat code related.
Awesome. We do like talking about code every now and then.
Um, we talked a bit about machine learning systems and sort of their growing pervasiveness, but there was a new study that came out that said that machine learning systems can be manipulated with bad data, small amounts of bad data, to intentionally leave back doors in the system. For example, if you were machine learning an innocent looking person versus a guilty looking person, and your data set had 100 pictures of you specifically, and it was always as an innocent person, then when that machine learning system saw you, it would be 100% match across the board for an innocent person.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminds me a lot of Minority Report, because Minority Report is the same general idea, which is that a system is in place that with a very, very light touch can be manipulated into believing something that isn't true with absolute certainty.
Well, we've heard stories in the past as well as how machine learning is prone to your normal social stigmatism, like racism, sexism,
Right.
you know, that sort of thing. And it's not even that it's intentional. It's not even intentionally being done. It's just the pervasiveness of that issue with like a certain group who might be doing that teaching of the AI, you know?
Well, one of the interesting things is that's a sort of an unintentional effect from culture issues. This is an active attack that uses these machine learning algorithms. There's only like 6 machine learning systems out there. And you can pre-test your results on these machine learning algorithms before you push it out to an adversarial, what they call an adversarial attack. And one example they give is that if you just do this very, very slight thing, then a gun looks like a helicopter to a machine learning system. So there's a lot of interest right now in having machine learning systems that can quickly identify a gun, but these machine learning systems all have the same general vulnerability, which is that it always looks at normal-looking guns, and that if you throw it off with a small amount of information, if you put a sticker on it on the gun that has a reflective pattern that the machine has never seen before, then it will identify it as something completely different. And you can even go further than this. The article, or the research study goes further and says, you can use machine learning to generate machine learning attacks that are imperceptible to people. So my example of 100 pictures of me is easy to pick up if you start saying, why are there 100 pictures of Tom in this database? But if I have my cheeks and my eyebrows and my nose randomly associated to innocent people pictures, then when it gets all of that data together, it sees my whole face, but no individual person could ever see that. So it's these weird things about where we're going to move forward trusting machine learning, because machine learning is only as good as the initial data set. And having looked into machine learning, there's not a lot of data sets out there, because the data sets have to be really, really big and very highly tuned. So there's a couple companies that provide these 10,000 picture data sets or 100,000 picture data sets. And if you sneak stuff into there, or if you realize that stuff is missing from that data set, it's pretty easy to find a flaw in the system. So it's
But
as we move towards,
if you're creating the system, you're not providing your own data set to make sure it's being set up properly from the beginning?
No.
Oh. Seems like a flaw right there.
Yeah, it is. And that's the issue with the what they said was systemic racism in data sets, was that you were buying data sets from a company that was in Washington and only had a lot of affluent white people, and they didn't realize that they just didn't have black people in photos on their data set. That just didn't occur to them. There are cases where, you do make your own data set and you have to go through it one image at a time and tag the component that matters and that kind of thing. But even then, you're working from a base set that you bought from somebody else. You're not taking 100,000 pictures. You're buying 100,000 pictures and then identifying something in the picture. And if I buy pictures, if I want to have an app that I can identify any food, then it'll handle burgers and it'll handle hot dogs and all the Americana stuff. It'll probably handle sushi and Indian food and Italian food. But then you start looking at like Mongolian food, and I'm just not going to have pictures of that.
Mongolian.
But it wouldn't even occur to the person who's doing the tagging on the data set that they hadn't included Mongolian food. So it's interesting stuff. I mean, we're moving more and more towards these automated systems. San Diego especially is got traffic light cameras that are doing machine learning based object detection now.
Oh, interesting you should say that. Let me see if I can find it real fast. This is off the cuff here. I just saw a tweet from the EFF today that said last year, San Diego Police Department used facial recognition on 600 and something people. In 2020, it will use facial recognition on 0 people. And I think it's implying some new policy was implemented about facial recognition. I know it was the EFF. I'm looking at their Twitter feed right now, trying to find it. So
there's a huge push to ban facial recognition for law enforcement. Huge.
Last year, cops in San Diego used mobile devices to run 25,000 facial recognition scans. Next year, this will be 0. San Diego to suspend facial recognition program. Which is interesting because it's, and we talked about it before. It's like, we're still in the infancy of a lot of these tools that are going to be very helpful. But the way they get used, especially by government, they really need to be monitored. They have to have some oversight. They have to be done with a lot of caution. And you definitely want to make sure you have people like these civil rights groups involved with it, because it's dangerous ground we're treading on.
They're doing the legwork. I mean, that's the thing that. It's always a conspiracy theory until it comes true, and then it's too late. And that's the facial recognition thing. I used to be fine with it until I saw some of the bad data results and what happens with the bad data results, and it's terrifying.
I agree, but I also think that it's going to get better, and that's the thing. It's like how it gets used, how it gets implemented. Those are the things we have to make sure we have a handle on. We can't just throw it out the door and say, "Oh no, we can't use this. This is horrible."
Sure, but when you're looking
at game changes.
But when you're looking at law enforcement, the one that's best is not the one that's going to sell best. The one that gets the most people is the one that's going to sell best. The one that has the most convictions is going to sell best. And if we're selling a product based off of its ability to convict somebody whether or not they're actually guilty,
I understand that.
Then the lowest common denominator is going to be the winner.
This was always my problem with red light cameras, right? Because there didn't seem to be a right to defend yourself against it, right? I mean, and first thing, I mean, I don't know if this holds true throughout the country, But the big issue I had with red light cameras here in San Diego is that they were run by a private company outside the state of California. And so some private company was, acting as law enforcement in my hometown of Poway and issuing tickets. And I said, okay, they're a private company, so they have to make a profit. So right there, that neglects the civil duty that they're supposedly doing. They're not doing a civil duty anymore. They're trying to make a profit. And you can't have that conflict in that world. It's like you can never be in a position where the civil duty you're performing is dependent on you making a profit off of it. It just can't happen.
And there was a lawsuit, I believe it was San Diego, that ended up getting all of the red light cameras removed because they were able to show that the private company that was running them had shortened the length of the yellow light, and it actually created a more dangerous intersection for the sake of profits.
That is, well, yeah. That, as somebody who experienced it, I will attest that is very true. Every light that had a camera, the yellow light was noticeably shorter.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about like a little, hey, was that a short yellow light? It was quick. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I believe the company got sued for manslaughter because of that.
Good.
So but as long as the corporations control this technology and control how it's implemented, this is going to be the scary future we're approaching. Is people are quitting Amazon and Google because of their associations with government agencies on facial recognition technology.
And to top it off, when you have your government representatives who make it clear that once they get elected, they don't care what the general consensus, what their people want. They're siding with their party, and that's what they're going for. That makes it even more difficult and challenging.
That's true. We didn't even mention the fact that today's impeachment day.
Yeah.
The 13 hours.
We don't talk about politics. Don't talk about politics on this show, do we?
No.
It's getting harder and harder in the tech world not to talk about it. I mean, we are becoming the politics of the future.
I've seen too many arguments at conferences over it. It's not worth it.
Over what?
Politics.
Oh yeah. Oh, just in general.
Yeah. I saw a huge blow up between a couple people years ago, and it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut right now.
Yeah.
Politics, religion, dietary requirements. You just don't talk about those things.
It's a friend of mine attacked me on Tuesday because I had made an offhanded comment about subtle white supremacist imagery on something that it turns out he was a big fan of. It's strange.
All right.
So you better not take it away from him.
On that note, I have.
Yes. Okay.
I have what would normally be considered a pretty bland story, or just sort of haha, like weird stuff happens in the tech world. But I read this very long article about the Do It For State domain name. If you don't know, State Snaps is a company that has really blown up on Instagram and Twitter and Snapchat. And the businessman behind it did not like that someone was squatting on his domain name. So the big hashtag for State Snaps is Do It For State. And someone realized as this thing was blowing up that it was going to be a business opportunity, so they bought doitforstate.com. And over a period of years, the conflict between the two businessmen got more and more heated until the point where the guy who owned the domain name had a person break into his house and at gunpoint tell him to go to GoDaddy.com and transfer the domain.
What?
So, on its own, very interesting story.
State Snap's founder convicted over armed plot.
14 years. And
wait a minute. I missed something. What's
He's now facing up to 20 years of imprisonment.
yeah. So he created something that went viral, but it went viral with a terminology that he didn't anticipate. Someone else picked up that hashtag, bought the domain name for it, and was using it to make their own merchandise and party hosting service. And it escalated badly over a family dinner. But the interesting thing to me was the guy who bought the domain name was a former GoDaddy employee. And when the robber busted in and told him to transfer the domain name, he knew something that he knew the robber didn't know, which was that the new policy to prevent this from happening was that the transaction had to be confirmed 3 days later by both parties. And so while this guy's got a gun to his head and he's waiting for the domain name to transfer and get the acknowledgement that it's on his account now, he realized that he could either be stuck with the gunman for 3 days or the guy could lose it and just shoot him. So he transfers the domain and then distracts the guy and tries to grab the gun from him. He gets shot in the leg.
That's almost never a good approach.
It's a bad approach, but he got shot in the leg and ended up getting the gun away from the guy and shot him 4 times in the chest.
Jesus.
The guy lived.
Of course he did.
But it turns out that the guy was not the businessman who created the do it for state thing. The guy was the cousin of the businessman. So the police were like, well, why did you do this? And he said, well, my brother told me to do it, and he told me he'd give me some money for it. And his brother, amazingly enough, continued working without being arrested for months and months and months, because he said, no, it was totally his own idea. He just wanted me to drive him somewhere, so I dropped him off and left.
Oh, really? So he actually drove him to the location?
Yeah, he drove him to Walmart to get burner phones, and then drove him to the location, and then heard the gunshots and sped off.
Oh my God!
But he was sitting in the car on his phone, refreshing the GoDaddy page and waiting for this domain to transfer to him.
That's a crazy world we live in.
It is.
Right.
The sad end game of the story is that the guy who owned the domain name basically hasn't gotten anything out of it substantial. He tried to do some marketing and do some party service related stuff, but never made even close to what the initial offer was for the domain name from the original businessman.
That's the way it always is. All right, I think that's it. What do you think?
Do it for state.
Do it for episode 172. Do it for PHP Ugly. Can we wrap it up? Are we good?
Absolutely.
We're ready.
I'm Eric Van Johnson.
I'm John Congdon.
I'm Tom Rideout. Keep
Keep
it ugly.
ugly.
Cool.
Have you guys seen my puppy?
I seen pictures on Facebook.
Does it have 4 legs and bark?
Huh?
Does it have 4 legs and bark?
Yeah, a lot.
Where is he? Call him
like
over.
so
No,
much.
you can keep him.
His name is Bear.
Yeah, he's crazy.
But he's not a bear.
Right now. He looks like a bear. He looks like a little baby bear.
Oh, you know what I forgot to mention, Thomas? It's fine that it's not on the show, but we went to a fundraiser last night.
Let's stop recording.
Bought $20 worth of raffle tickets. Won a PlayStation 4.
No.
I swear to God. I swear to God. It's still sitting in the box. We still haven't hooked it up. It was funny because my daughter walked over. She goes, "Dad, into the raffle. They have a PlayStation there." I'm like, "You guys don't play video games," and
Is it a PS4 Pro or a PS4?
I'm assuming just a PS4. I don't know. What's the
I'd be
difference?
surprised.
One is a
It's
pro
small.
and one's not. Duh.
150 bucks.
It's small and light as hell, so I don't know if that makes a difference.
No, not really.
But yeah, I told him, I'm like, hey, I just got the Switch. I can bring the Switch home if you guys want to play games. But it was a fundraiser, so I was like, all right, fine. Here's $20. Give us some tickets. And then of course it's a drag show, right? So it's like it's quite the rambunctious crowd there, and they start reading off this ticket, and I look over, and my wife is raising her hand. I'm like, put your hand down. Why do you have your
Stop
hand
it.
up?
This isn't for you.
Oh, man. So, yeah, it's cool. Got a PlayStation now. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I have one.
I got something cool. Here,
What's
guys,
that?
can you guys see me?
Yeah.
Okay, 1 sec.
John, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
So happy when you're on.
You got a PDU, okay? He has a PDU.
PTU.
He has a PDU. He's excited about a PDU. Why?
Why are you excited about this?
It is a 12-port, 4-foot-long power strip.
I got one under my desk here. I drilled it to the underside of my desk. I love those things.
Well, I've been working on. See, I forgot to put this in the show. Shit. That's okay.
Look at you. You guys are already moving your recordings over.
Yeah. Well, I didn't do it last time, so I ended up trying to.
You don't want to get
Edit.
stuck with editing again.
Yeah.
So I moved all of my. I have this automated video downloading system. I've told you about it before, where it knows what TV shows I watch and downloads them when they're available. I moved that whole system to a Raspberry Pi and a 6 terabyte external hard drive.
Nice use of a Raspberry Pi there.
So the whole thing is offloaded to just a small box like this. And then I bought a used stereo receiver from a stripper. So now I have a nice, because it was a bizarre interaction, but it was cheaper than it should have been. I was concerned that it was stolen, because I had to look her up on Facebook, and she was like, "I work at the strip club over here," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." Still not 100% that it wasn't stolen, but so now I have a receiver that's going to last me for 5 years, and it was only $60. And then I've got the TV that's nice. I put the money into it. And I've got the surround speakers. I've got a nice subwoofer. I've got the automated Raspberry Pi. I've got the Nintendo Switch, and I've got the desktop computer for games. And it's like the whole media center thing is coming together, except that the normal power strips, everything I have has one of those wall wart style transformers. So the 2 power strips I have can only fit 4 things total. So I had to get one of these giant power strips just to run my media center. And it's another one of those things where it's like I look at the cost of the technology and it doesn't make sense. Like looking up Raspberry Pi file servers, you would want to do a Raspberry Pi 4, not the 3. But still, that's like $100 max. And then you do each individual drive that you want to put on it. But the lowest level home NAS case, like just system, is like $350 without drives. It's like, why are people not
Because
making these Pi systems?
Companies make a profit, man. I mean, that's how companies work.
I
You know,
know.
they
It's
take
just
something that you can do cheaper, and they add their little. They make it nice and easy. They put nice little interfaces to it, and they charge more money. It's
yeah.
how things work.
It's just interesting to me that like I've been working for a couple of years now trying to find cheap solutions to all of these things that are out there, and I've managed to do pretty well. And especially with the Harmony remote, that thing is the greatest.
Well, that's not cheap. A Harmony remote's expensive as hell.
$35, baby.
What? What
Yeah,
fucking Harmony remote do you have?
the original model with the color screen on it.
Yeah.
I think it's the 350. No, it's not the 350.
I'm on their website. The cheapest one I see on their website is $50. That's without the screen. $70 with the screen. That's the 665. These things are not cheap. Oh, look at this new one, the Elite. My
So
God, that's pretty.
the one that comes with a Bluetooth base station, a controller, and the app is $50. The one that I got it for $35. The 665 you can get refurbished for $35.
Well, see, now you're throwing in all these factors, refurbished, all this other stuff.
Well, yeah, because my goal is doing it on the cheap. So it's like, know the thing that I want and keep my eyes out for it. Yeah, so the 650 is the one I have, and it's frequently on sale for $25.
I don't even see a 650 on here. I'm on their site, so that must be one of the discontinued models. So that would probably be why it's so cheap. But
Yeah, the
yes.
665 is $46.
All right. What are we talking about here? Are we having a conversation about something?
I'm building up this.
$350 remote.
That's what you're looking at, the Elite, man. I'm telling you. Look at it.
You
man.
start
controls
using it, man.
everything.
It's nice. It's Bluetooth, and it has this base station that you just point it at the TV, so anywhere in the house you can control anything. And then the whole thing is programmable. So you have like actions that you set up. So if I just hit the Netflix button, then my TV turns the stereo on, switches Netflix, and then switches the Dolby surround to the Netflix one that I like. And it just manages everything. And the newer ones, the Bluetooth ones, they can control smart devices. So they can control lighting.
They have the whole lights on here. They have Alexa. All sorts of fun stuff.
And then
$350 though.
I got a module for my PC that lets it receive IR signals, so the remote now can control Kodi. So I have a remote control that plays Kodi just like it's a VCR. It's very nice. It's very convenient. But I'm just building this. I'm building this whole entertainment system up, one piece at a time, and it's turning out very nicely.
You know what I did? I recently did. So we've switched completely over to internet-based television, right? So we have no more cable. We have all our internet through. Currently, we're using the Hulu TV for local channels. We use Hulu for the premium stuff, and we have Netflix and all that. So we have one smart television that has those apps built into them, but we also have Roku's, and we have Roku's at the office. You get those damn Roku televisions here; they're like $200. It's a fucking 50-inch screen and it has Roku built into it.
It's ridiculous.
So I came to the realization, like, we're using Roku everywhere. I went and bought one of those Roku gum sticks. I'm like, fuck it. Now when we travel, I don't even care about the hotel television anymore. I'm sticking my Roku gum stick in there, and I have all my normal television again.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. If only it didn't have like 400 streaming services now.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to. You just subscribe to whatever you want to subscribe to.
I mean, I would rather have it because my TiVo only has like 6 or 7 streaming services and doesn't get updated. So
Really?
I mean, I have like the Netflix and Hulu through it, but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have Disney Plus or anything else really.
Right. Exactly. So Roku's one of those services like again, Disney Plus comes out, boom, it's on Roku. You know, Apple Television comes out, boom, it's on Roku. You know, it's like that technology has gotten so good. The little gum sticks, they're like 4K, and you just plug it in, and the only thing you'll need to do is figure out
4K.
how to get on the hotel Wi-Fi. If you don't want to tether it, that is.
Yeah.
So
And I mean, if you wanted privacy or if you wanted configurability, Raspberry Pi, HDMI straight to the TV, and you've got every streaming service as well as a desktop interface.
how's that?
Like, because Raspberry Pi just runs Linux.
Yeah, but then you
Like,
need a keyboard and mouse and browser and
don't need one. I managed my entire Raspberry Pi setup through VNC. So I got it.
okay,
I
that's
just,
true.
I mean, that was. I was trying to figure out how I was going to get this thing set up while it was plugged into my TV, and I realized if I just plugged it in and then VNC'd into it, I could do the entire configuration remotely.
Yeah, but so that's the other nice thing about the gum stick is that you don't have to touch the hotel remote anymore. It has the little Roku remote, has volume,
Yeah.
has power. Yeah, that's looking. I'm happy with that decision. I haven't actually had a chance to use it. We're going to Houston for Christmas, so that'll be my first hotel experience where I'll see how easy it is to actually plug in and use. But
Wi-Fi might be a small problem, but you could just tether it to your phone.
I think you're right. That's my biggest concern is the Wi-Fi. We'll see.
Well, if you have a wired connection in your room, tether it to your laptop.
That's true. You can
Oh,
do
look,
that,
there's
right?
support.roku.com. How to use Hotel and Dorm Connect to connect to the internet.
Oh, really? They have a little support thing for it?
Yep, just for hotels or college dorms.
Interesting. Raspberry Pi still don't handle the res stuff so well in my experience. It doesn't decode 4K so smoothly. Buttery disagrees with your love of the Raspberry Pi, Thomas.
So what I'm doing is not decoding. I'm just downloading, and it's just managing my file server. It's not actually playing anything to the TV. Anything on the TV is streamed from the Pi to the desktop, and the desktop is doing all the decoding live. The Raspberry Pi 4 should handle 4K, but even if it doesn't, I'm not too concerned because my media device, my actual media player, is a different device altogether. But I do need to upgrade to a Pi 4 because the Pi 3 only has USB 2.0, so it can't really stream well enough.
Can't your desktop just use the NAS? Why do you need to go through a Raspberry Pi for that?
The Raspberry Pi is the NAS.
Yeah, but why don't you just hook the drives to the desktop then?
Because while I'm playing on my desktop, if it starts to download 10 terabytes of stuff and then do an unrar of it and all that stuff, I have to worry about that. Also, I've had to move my entire library a couple times, and moving your library is very difficult with some of the apps that I use. On the Raspberry Pi, it's a micro SD card and the removable drive, and I can switch to any other hardware I want to. The whole configuration is there and done, and I never need to worry about it again.
Sure. All right, I'm wrapping up. Thomas, you down to do some editing?
Yeah, I think
I got a PHP arc I got to edit. So if you're cool with it, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Right. Buttery, thanks for hanging out with us tonight, man. Appreciate it. I'm gonna kill the stream. Anybody
I
else?
forgot to thank Patreon's on the stream.
Forgot to thank Patreons on the stream. God damn it!
I was thinking about it afterwards.
I need to get the scene set up too. I think I have a Patreon's. Let me see. I think I have a Patreon scene here. Nope, I have John.
One option. The mortgage.
I don't know if that was Alexa or Google.
That was Alexa.
Hmm.
You guys heard about Samuel Jackson Alexa, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you pre-ordered it right away and you still haven't gotten it.
It came out today, and it turns out that it is not a complete voice conversion like people thought it was. It is just an Alexa